Now we're quickly going to look at working with type in Illustrator. Fortunately, it's quite similar to InDesign, and where InDesign is very rigid and detailed, which is a wonderful aspect of InDesign, Illustrator lets us be a little more flexible, and it gives us a couple of options on how to work with it. So if you have worked with type in InDesign, then you've learned a lot about working with type in Illustrator already. But I'm going to show you a couple of different things that happen with type in terms of Illustrator. I'm going to go to my type tool. So it's the same tool. And I'm going to just click. I didn't click and drag. In InDesign, we have to click and drag to make a type frame. Now we can do that in Illustrator, but when we just click, that type, I'm just going to leave the words lorem ipsum and go back to my main cursor. That type takes on the behavior of an object. I can turn it, I can scale it using my shift key, and it becomes a little more flexible to work with. I can still highlight it. I can still highlight it and change the color, and I can change the settings and so on. So in the type menu we have, of course, several of the regular settings that you would see, but typically you want to get in and open up your character palette, which is Command T. And anytime you're working with type, of course, you'll see you have your options up along the top as well. So that's when I'll do that again. I just go to my type tool and I click, and then I can start typing. Okay, so that lets me go back to my cursor and it behaves like an object. Now if I click and drag, this becomes a little more like InDesign. So now when I go to my main cursor and I rotate, it's rotating the frame, it's not rotating the text. Now if I wanted to rotate the text, I would have to go to the rotate tool over here, and then I can rotate that whole thing. So that's where there's a little bit of a difference. In Illustrator, we're sometimes doing things, we're creating logos, we're doing things working with single words or a couple words, so that's where this just click and type becomes useful. But at the same time, when you're doing a promotional flyer like this, you may be doing a paragraph of type. And of course, we can still work on that paragraph. I can select it all, I can open my paragraph palette, and I can do all the same settings, turn hyphenation on and off, use my alignment tools, and I can even do justification settings that we saw briefly in InDesign. So it does let us get pretty detailed with our type, but still not to the extent that InDesign does. You should not be using Illustrator for large documents that have a lot of words. You definitely would not want to typeset an annual report or a novel or something in Illustrator. It's mainly for small amounts of body copy and then working with type. Now, a couple of cool things about working with type in Illustrator is that you can work with them almost like shape. So working with this, for example, if I scale this up, I'm holding shift, of course, always hold shift. Now, if I wanted to apply a gradient to this, I'm going to make this a little more bold. So I just did Command A. I clicked in, did Command A, and I was going to use a bold version of this typeface. Now we looked at color, but I want to show you quickly gradients and at the same time show you some type things. So if I apply a gradient to this, I'm going to pull open my gradient palette. And by the way, working with gradients in Illustrator is much easier from the gradient panel. So you get that here in the window menu. It's much easier working with that than it is working with the gradient tool here. Now there's something called the gradient mesh tool. That's a little more advanced in terms of illustration, doing more graphic arts. If you really get into Illustrator, it is definitely worth investigating, looking at how the gradient mesh works. It's a fantastic tool. However, in our case, we typically use gradients very subtly, and we can just work from the gradient panel. So if I wanted to apply a gradient to this, and a gradient is a transition of one color to another, I'm just going to set my gradient here so we have one that we can see a difference in. So I'm just going to bring a blue in there, replace the white, and I'll bring a darker blue and replace the black. So here's the gradient that I'm creating. And by the way, I can actually save that in my swatches as well too. So if I apply that gradient to the fill of this type, this is what happens. Nothing. It doesn't work because it's live type. Live type can't adopt a gradient as a fill. So what I need to do when I get this set the way I want it, I have to convert it to paths, or what we call convert to outlines. So I select it, and not select it like this. I don't highlight it. With my main cursor, I select it, and I go to type and create outlines, or Command-Shift-O. And now when I apply the gradient to the fill, it applies, but you're going to see that it's doing one letter at a time. So it's not very smooth. We're getting there, we're getting where we want to be, but it's not smooth. Right now we just have a group of individual letters. I can go to the object menu and ungroup that, and now it's still a bunch of individual letters, but they're just not grouped. So I want this to behave as a single object. I can select it. I can do one of two things. I can use my pathfinder, we saw earlier, to make it a single shape, but it still may not adopt the gradient across the shape. So it depends on what you're working with that will allow it to do that. So what I usually do is play it safe. I go to the object menu, go down to path, because we're now working with paths. We're not working with type. We're working with paths that are that line art. And I'll go down to here to make a compound path. And what a compound path does is make everything behave together, almost act as a single shape, even though it's several individuals. Make, and that's how the gradient behaves across a single shape. Okay, so you do get used to these things. I always say don't let your lack of knowledge with the program hinder what you want to do. Just ask and I'll be able to help. But that's a great way to work with type. And then the gradient aspect of color, you can, I'll show you this briefly. You can bring that bar, you can slide it, slide that swatch along the bar. You can, all of these things move. You can adjust the angles. You can bring another color in. Now this is getting a little ridiculous. We should always be very subtle with gradients. But if you wanted to take something out, you just pull it down and drop it out. I'll do that again. Pull down, drop out. So I always say the more subtle you are using gradients, the better. It can be fun to use them. We're kind of in a renaissance with gradients right now. I'm seeing them in a lot of things, but it's being done much more subtly than it was in the 90s. So that's another aspect of working with color. And of course, you can apply a gradient to a regular shape. And when done nicely, gradients, they add a nice dimension to a layout, but you really want to use them so subtly, so carefully, and minimally. One final thing I want to show you with type before I wrap this up is type on a path. Now, that is located here. If you hold the type tool down, we'll get type on a path. And you can play with all of these. These are worth just seeing what happens when you use them, but I'm showing you the ones we typically use. And type on a path is great because what it will do is move your type onto any path that you have already there. Now, I don't have one at the moment, so I'm going to make a circle. And that shape, of course, Command Y here, that shape, of course, has a path. Now I can put type on that path. I'll do Command Y again. And when I go to my type on a path, it gives that little swirl on the cursor. And when I hover over the path, you can see the word path come up there. And I'll click on that. And it puts type along that circle. So then I can, of course, write anything I want. And then when I go back to my direct select cursor, you'll see that there's these lines. This single line comes up down here, and that lets me move it along the circle or bring it to the inside, outside, and so on. Now, you'll see this a lot. We see t-shirts all the time that have circular type, but that's just type on a circle. We can apply type to any path. If I use my pen tool, for example, to draw a path, and I want to put type along that, we get that little bit of curve, and I can go back and I can adjust the curve because it's an existing path, and the type will react. I can still highlight the type, I can type, I can change, I can apply another color to it, and so on. Okay, so a few fun things that you can do with type. All of these things in the kind of work we do should be done very subtly and carefully, from gradients to type on a path. But what I really encourage you to do when you're working with Illustrator is look at things, see what you're seeing out there, anything around your home, book covers, magazines, packaging. You'll see a lot of examples of what I've shown you already. For example, most packaging is designed in Illustrator, most product packaging. And you'll see very subtle gradients. You'll see type on a path. You'll see type treatment with color and so on. All of those things you can look at and really get a sense of what you can do with Illustrator. Okay? Hopefully this helps you working with type, working with color and gradient. And again, any questions you have, always please feel free to ask me.